All right. Good afternoon and good morning wherever you are, or good evening, whatever the time is where you are watching this video. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about a topic categorized under Series 4 in Jupeb syllabus. So I am going to be using my textbook, as the notes. In case you want to get the book, I'm going to drop my number in the description box, so you can call me or chat me up. And if you need a one-on-one class, you can also call me or chat me up so we can get on that. Your exam is close by, I think next month, so let's just get right into it. So in this particular video, I'm going to be talking about an overview of previous attempts at Christianizing Africa. So let's start with the topic. An overview of previous attempts at Christianizing Africa. So when you hear overview means like a summary, like a breakdown of everything of previous attempts. So which means there have been, when you attempt something, you try to do something. So it means there have been previous, something that has been done before, right? At Christianizing Africa. Christianizing Africa means trying to make Africans Christians. So they want you to talk about the previous attempt at Christianizing Africa. What was it like? How did Christianity get to Africa? So the first attempt was in North Africa. So we are going to be looking at the different attempts. So we have the first attempt, we have the second attempt, and we have the third attempt. So right now, we're talking about the first attempt in North Africa. So in your syllabus, they actually divided it, they categorized it. So we have the pre-Christian contact. Talking about the pre-Christian contact, we're talking about Abraham and Joseph. So pre-Christian means before the name Christians came into being. Remember, they were called Christians in the New Testament, right? So let's get right into it. So talking about pre-Christian contact, Abraham and Joseph were once in Africa, right? So let me just give you the story. In case you want the note, you have to pause the video, then you can try to copy it as if you'll be able to capture everything, right? But I'm just going to explain. So talking about how Christianity got to Africa through Abraham and Joseph. So Abraham and Joseph were both committed God lover, and Abraham had to move to Egypt. If you remember, there was a time that Abraham had to move to Egypt because of drought. Like there was famine where Abraham was, and he had to move to Egypt. Remember the story of how Abraham told Sarah to lie, that Sarah wasn't his wife, so that they would be able to stay in that land, right? Remember that particular story? So that was the story of Abraham. So the patriarch Abraham is known to have sojourned in Africa briefly. Abraham stayed in Africa very briefly, and then the fact that Abraham is connected to God, that in one way or the other has actually brought Christianity to Africa. So sorry for that distraction. Okay, let me just continue. So the patriarch Abraham is known to have sojourned in Africa briefly. Abraham had to move to Egypt because of drought in Canaan land. So he had to appeal to his wife Sarah to pretend to be his sister so as to save himself from the greediness and lustfulness of the Egyptian. So I'm going to be reading from my note because of time, so that I don't want this video to be more than 14 minutes. So that's why I'm just going to read. So I just want you to just follow through. So Sarah had to pretend to be Abraham's sister, so as they can be safe in Egypt. So this deceit might have saved him from death, but Pharaoh attempted to have carnal knowledge of Abraham's wife until he was 1 or 2. So according to the Bible, that was the first contact that African has with Christianity. Do you get that? So as a Christian, it is a major contact that African had with Christianity, and his encounter with the king proclaimed God's name more amongst the Egyptians, right? So moving on to Joseph. Joseph, on the other hand, was sold into slavery by his brothers, and eventually he was sold to an Egyptian officer, Potiphar. He was sent to prison after a mishap with his master's wife. While in the prison, he encountered officers of Pharaoh. Through the help of one of them, he was released from prison, and he helped the nation escape and prepare for a devastating famine. Through him, his family moved to Egypt and dwelled in the land for almost 400 years. Right? So this shows that the God of Israel was worshipped in Africa from the start, right? They were in Egypt. Joseph and the family were in Egypt. You know they believe in God. So that was a major contact that African has with Christianity. So African had seen the influence and the power of God of Israel at that particular time. So we have the Christian contact. So what I just explained now was the pre-Christian contact. So we have the Christian contact. And talking about the Christian contact, the first person to mention is Jesus. So in your exam, they can tell you to talk about the first attempt at Christianizing Africa. Those are the major things that you mentioned. So you mentioned Joseph's story, you mentioned Abraham's story. Then we have the Christian contact. Jesus' family also fled to Egypt until the death of Herod. If you remember when they wanted, the angel appeared to Joseph and Mary that they should carry Jesus to Egypt. That was when Herod said they should start killing the newborns. They had to run to Egypt. So this is because Herod was on the verge to kill Jesus. In other words, Jesus was in Africa and spent most of his early childhood days in Africa. So that explains Jesus in Africa, and Jesus definitely began the Christianity journey. So that's another contact that African has with Christianity. Then we have the Pentecost Day. On the day of Pentecost, some of the multitude that gathered with the disciples speaking in tongues came from Africa. If you want to understand it better, go to the book of Acts and read it. You will see that they mention one African country. So which means that for someone like that, on the Pentecost Day, they were changed, right? For them to speak in tongues, they became empowered. So that person returning back to Africa means what? Bringing Christianity back home, and definitely people will get converted. So they were amazed by the fact that the disciples were speaking their language, and there's a high possibility that Africans present there that they were converted and thereby bring the gospel home. So lastly, we have the Ethiopian eunuch. You know this story. The Ethiopian eunuch that was reading the Bible and he didn't understand, and God told Philip to explain to him. So an angel appeared to Philip and instructed him to go to the road between Gaza and Jerusalem, and there he met an Ethiopian eunuch, a minister of the Candace. He was on his way coming from Jerusalem, where he went to worship, and he was reading the book of Isaiah and needed help in understanding it. So Apostle Philip helped to explain the content and was able to convert and baptize the eunuch to Christianity. So he's an Ethiopian eunuch, and from according to history, Ethiopia became the first African what's the word now? Let me check to confirm. Ethiopia became the first African. All right, let me read it the way I have it in my notes. So in the 1st century AD, the Ethiopian king Ezana made Christianity the kingdom's official religion. So this marked a significant turning point in the history of Christianity in Africa, establishing Ethiopia as one of the first regions in the world to adopt Christianity as its official religion. I hope you get that. So also in that note, so like I said, if you want a one-on-one class, I can give you that I have more notes that I can send to you, right? But because of this class, I'm just going to use my textbook alone, and then we just use that. So now moving quickly to reasons for the failure of the church. Like, why did it fail? The attempt of Christianizing Africa, why did it fail? So Christianization of Africa failed because of some reasons. Firstly, the spread of Islam. Right? The spread of Islam, especially in the northern part of Africa, made it impossible for the spread of Christianity. So the rise of Islam in the 7th century AD led to the decline of Christianity in North Africa, as many Christians were pressured to convert to Islam. While some Christian communities survived, such as the Coptic Orthodox Church of Alexandria, the influence of Islam significantly altered the religious landscape of the religion. So the Ethiopian Empire, however, remained a Christian state throughout the Middle Ages, preserving its own unique religious customs and a distinct canon of the Bible. So we have here that one of the reasons why it failed was the spread of Islam, in the northern part. Then there was also a major division within the church, which led to their failure to evangelize to Africa, and aside war in the church, there was also political turmoil and war, which made people migrate out of the continent. People left Africa because of political turmoil, to find peace and a better way of life, and this made it impossible for a reasonable evangelism to happen. So to conclude that, the teachings of RSC, we have heretical teachings, and it made most Africans at the time not to take religion seriously, hence the failure recorded. So moving on very quickly, the second attempt, talking about the second attempt, we are talking about the Portuguese effort. The Portuguese effort, that was the second attempt. So the arrival of Portuguese traders and missionaries in the late 15th century. Now it is very important that you don't forget all these years. You might not be able to remember that with maybe like most times when I want to write the exam that has history and they're asking me and I can't remember 1970 something, I know that 1970 something means 20th century, right? So make sure you know that. So now we have here that 1460, right? So that means the 15th century. Do you understand? So now the arrival of Portuguese traders and missionaries in the late 15th century marked a new chapter in the issue of Christianity in Africa. So these Portuguese, they are traders and some of them are missionaries. So the traders that followed the missionaries, they came to trade, right? While the missionaries came to evangelize, to turn people to Christians. So they first arrived in West Africa. That's where Nigeria is, converting prominent local leaders to Catholicism. So they want them to be Catholics, and then they went to Guinea, Mauritania, Gambia, Ghana, Sierra Leone, and the Kingdom of Congo. So this period saw the introduction of Catholicism to new regions of Africa, expanding the reach of Christianity beyond its established presence in North Africa and Ethiopia. So this is basically what happened. They came to Africa. Let me just rush through the note because this is already 11 minutes and I don't want the video to be too long. So access to commodities such as fabrics, spices, and gold motivated the European quest for a faster means to reach South Asia. So you already know why they came. They want to get access to fabrics like spices and gold, and then they came to Nigeria. So the first missionary incursion into west coast of Africa was pioneered by the Portuguese in the 15th century, and the popular prince of Portugal known as Henry the Navigator was the principal initiator. So he started it. Henry the Navigator started it. This can come up in your multiple choice questions. Who initiated the second attempt? Henry the Navigator. So no Europeans had ever explored the west coast of Africa. Henry the Navigator did not investigate the coastal waters himself initially. He had sent others to the west coast of Africa to find a way around the Muslims who were trading in the Saharas. So they were looking for ways to get access to the west coast of Africa, right? So what they needed to do was that they had to go through the way the Muslims who already had access. They wanted to know the route that they took to be able to get to West Africa. So Father Bethesda was the first missionary in West Africa. Remember I just read that they introduced Catholicism. So Catholics has the padre, the father, right? So this Father Bethesda was the first missionary in West Africa, and he was the initiator of missionaries in West Africa in the issue of Sierra Leone, where he began. So Bethesda baptizes King Philip of Sierra Leone and continues working his way through the west and north to teach and recruit people into the Christian faith. And in a decade of missions work, he claimed 20,000 converts. Now, in 1482, the Portuguese traders made effort to evangelize in Ghana. So they went to Ghana as well. Note the year. They set up a trading post at Elmina in Ghana. They also set up a chapel at the same place. They tried their best to reach out to the people, but at the end of the century, their mission failed. They themselves were more interested in commerce and trade, and their congregation was limited to European traders and few Africans. Then they came to Nigeria. So they came to Warri, Benin. You cannot forget that. The Portuguese also tried to establish church at Warri and Benin, but just like Elmina, their major interest was commerce, right? Commerce, they just want to trade, they want to also make money. So the Portuguese priests who accompanied Portuguese explorers came in contact with Warri people in the 15th century, around 1477. The first European contacts were made with Benin, and by 1555, the Augustan monks visited Warri. The monks were sent by Gaspar, the bishop of the Diocese of Salto. So they were able to do some things in Warri, right? Father Francisco, one of the monks, baptized the son of the Olo of Warri under the same Osebata. So Nigeria actually, they accepted them, right? They gave them opportunity to be able to preach to them, and they were able to achieve they were able to achieve success in Africa. So the contact, you cannot forget that Warri and then in Benin. So in the next video, I'm going to continue that. Thank you. So if you need this textbook, I'm going to drop my number in the description box. You can chat me up. Thank you. Bye. And if you have any question, please use the comments section. And if there's anything you want me to add to this class, kindly comment below. Thank you.